blast off.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the I Am Possible Radio. It is Mia Elise and Sally Savasco with you today, and today we are talking about haters. If you show up anywhere online today, 10 years ago, 20 years from now, you are going to have haters. If you show up in any public space, whether you're a celebrity or an athlete or an online entrepreneur or even a physical, space entrepreneur, you are going to have haters. We ourselves have experienced our fair share of haters. We also have clients who have experienced their own haters. And so we thought we would come to you today and talk about what to do when you have haters, what is a hater, and how to handle it, both externally and internally, because as we grow as online business owners, we tend to grow our team, right? We can't grow and scale our business without bringing on people. And sometimes those relationships don't work out, and you have haters who are in your own space. So we're going to talk about how to deal with haters who are outside, in the outside world, and then haters in your own company. I thought I would start this episode off with a quote. I was looking up some quotes, and this one kind of caught my eye. So it says, "No matter how good you are, someone is always going to be against you, but never let them be the limit of your success."
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So Terry Mark, I have no idea who that is, but that's who said that. And it's so true, because I know that, Sally, you've been around for a while in the marketing and business world, and you've experienced haters, I'm sure, with yourself, your companies, and clients of yours, and I know we have. So I thought maybe we could start this off with our own personal story of haters. But before we do that, can you tell me, if you've ever experienced haters, like say 10 years ago, 15 years ago in business?
Yeah, definitely, because it's part of business. It's just what happens in business, in the business world. And there are a number of different things that can happen and do happen along the way. And it's interesting because in a group the other day, somebody was talking about this, and they said, you have no way of knowing what's going on in somebody's head or their life or what tragedies they're going through and all these things. So what happens is sometimes people are just downright mean and nasty. And sometimes they're going through something pretty heavy, and they lash out and they take it out on some innocent company or person because they're distraught.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's happened to me in the past. At one point, I had a client that was, and you can't rationalize with somebody who's irrational. So it's best not to engage, because I learned a long time ago, it only escalates the situation when they're in a space where they aren't interested in having a conversation or to respond constructively. That you can't fix that. You can only control how you behave and how you operate. So I had this client that actually literally screamed on the phone and hung up, which connected our call to the hosting company that I was trying to fix her problem. So I had to start all over again. And do you know that 10 years later, she came to me and apologized and said, "I am so sorry I behaved that way. This is what I was going through at the time, and I took it."
Oh, gosh.
So, unbelievable. I was shocked. And it's the funniest thing, because at that same time, another person that I had worked with at a company a long time ago, additional 10 years, 20 years later, came to apologize for what she did to me.
Oh, my goodness. I have a similar story to that. I've always been a very ambitious person. And so my very first job was at Starbucks as a barista. I was 16. I was the youngest person that was hired in this store. Everybody everybody was like, why are you hiring this young kid? They soon came to love it though, because I was covering everyone's shifts when they wanted to go out on a Friday and a Saturday night. I thought they were inviting me. They would always say, hey, what are you doing Friday night? And I'd be like, oh, nothing. And then I thought they were going to invite me to go out with them. No, they wanted me to cover their shift. So they were like, oh, this is fantastic. This 16-year-old girl can't do anything. Like, let's get her to cover all of our shifts. But
We have an designated driver, right?
yeah. So fast forward a couple years, and I had been promoted up to a store manager. So I took over $1 million store when I was 20 years old. And it was this like big deal. And I had a lot of people who were working for me that were older than me. One person in particular was very nasty to me. She was just terrible, like absolutely terrible person. And you can't really fire somebody or let somebody go because they are terrible to you. Like, obviously they have to be a bad employee in general. So, we dealt with it for a while, and then I moved on with my life and whatever. Like 5 or 6 years later, she came back to me and apologized. And for what she was going through in her life, it was a very tumultuous time in her life. And she apologized for how nasty she was. So my first recommendation is that we can forgive, but we don't have to forget how people treat us, right? We can forgive them for how they treat us, because how they are treating you is a direct reflection of themselves, not you. So what they are going through in their lives, or what they are concerned about, or giving you hell about, usually is a direct reflection of what they're going through or what they're insecure about. It has nothing to do with you. But that doesn't mean that you have to forget about it or allow them back into your life. So this girl apologized to me and then wanted to be friends on Facebook. And I was like, I forgive you, but I do not want to be your friend. You are a nasty person. You were nasty to me then, and I do not need to have that in my life. So that would be my lesson number one, is to just know that usually when somebody is giving you hell about something, or being mean to you about something, or being nasty about whatever it is, it's a direct reflection of themselves and not you. And it's usually like an insecurity that they have.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I'm not proud of this, but many, many years ago, well, not many, I guess about 3 years ago, I was working on a lot of client accounts. And one client in particular, I was watching her videos, and I made a side comment about like how she looks in these videos. And I had to do some like self-reflection, because I was like, why are you being so like nitpicky about her videos? Or why do you care so much? Or why are you being kind of nasty? And that's a direct reflection of my own insecurity about how I show up on video. My face is crooked. I talk out of the side of my mouth sometimes. Like, like when you start to watch yourself on video, you start to get really like, oh my God.
We're our own worst critics.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, why do I look like that? And so how I was reflecting on this person's video is a direct reflection of my own insecurity about how I show up on video. And so anytime that you have a negative comment, or you start to feel a certain kind of way about somebody, ask yourself, like, what does this say about me and my own insecurities? Because if I'm feeling a certain type of way about somebody, it usually means that I am insecure about something, or I'm jealous about something that I want that I don't have just yet. And so, maybe I need to work harder to get it, or something like that. It never has anything to do with the other person. I apologize if you're hearing construction. There's literally construction around me everywhere.
That's me with the sirens, because I live next door to the fire department. So the sirens are always going off. I have to keep muting myself when I'm on Zoom stuff.
Oh my God, it's so bad. I have it going on in my house. I have it going on outside. It's terrible. So Sally, do you want to talk about our own experience with haters with our own company? We formed a company at the beginning of COVID, so it's not that long ago. And we experienced hater right off the bat. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, it was really funny because we were on our meeting or something, or I think Ashley said in Voxer, I'm not sure. She said, who created the haters folder in our drive? Well, what happened was that was a stellar week for us. So I had said, we almost got sued. This happened, that happened, all these crazy things happened in 1 week. And then I said, and we've got a haters. And, I said, we have arrived.
Yes, we have arrived. When you start to imagine. Oh, no. Did we get lost? Are we back?
What happened?
Did we get lost?
I'm here.
Okay.
Something's ringing.
Something's ringing.
Okay. I think somebody was trying to call me on Facebook or something.
I think we're good. We are trying to do this on BeLive because Zoom and Facebook are not working out, but I think we're good. I think we're back on. Can you hear me?
Oh, that was good. Ray said, you both are fantastic. Perfection doesn't exist. And when it comes to video, it's always about the value to the client. Yes, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
That. You've made it when you get haters. Yeah. The more haters, the more successful you are. And this is true. And not everybody's going to click with your style or whatever you're doing. We fortunately attract people like you, Ray, and Ginger, and everybody that's watching us right now, Maria Jones. You've come into our sphere and our world, and we really connect with all of you. I think you all connect with us as well. And we love it. We really enjoy it. But there are others that probably wouldn't click with us that align with a different type of personality or different people, or, it's just the way it works.
Yeah, it's true. So in our own experience, we've been around for a little while in the online space, and we kind of knew going into it that when we started out in our online business world and we started to show up in this space, that we would get our own set of haters. So we were a bit prepared for it. However, that doesn't make it any better or worse. And so in our own experience, we had somebody who was somewhat harassing us. And how we took action was through legal action. So some people might not have to that extent, but we had access to a lawyer, and so we actually sent a cease and desist. So that is one way to deal with haters. On the extreme end, we took action by sending a cease and desist letter. On the not so extreme end, you can just ignore it, right? Or you can make comments. So if somebody leaves comments on your posts or your videos or whatever, you can just respond nicely, or you can just hide the comments, right? We've done our fair share of that. So what is the benefit? I guess I would ask you, Sally, because you handle a lot of our social media, and you also handle comments and whatnot on posts. So when should you hide a comment versus when should you respond to a comment?
Well, when somebody's being outright nasty and using foul language, and you can tell by the way they're saying something that you're not going to fix it. And responding is going to fuel the flame, and you don't want to escalate that kind of a comment, right? But so there's a line. You will know when you have one that you need to hide. You're going to know it, because you're going to feel that language coming right at you like a dagger. So you want to get rid of that as soon as possible, because that's just toxic. You don't want that on your page. You don't want it in your group. You don't want it in your friends. It's just toxic behavior, and that's just going to poison everything. So you just get rid of them. Just delete them and ban them. You can ban them from your page. You can oust them out of your group if you happen to get a bad apple in your group. It happens once in a while. We try to be very selective when we let people in and make sure I mean, you can tell a lot of the time when you see a hacker or a scammer or something, when you see their profile, it's brand new. It's got these military pictures. I love that one. They put military, like, the US stuff, and they're obviously scammers. You don't let them in. But there are times when people will make a comment and they might be criticizing. However, you can turn that into something that actually helps you, because if you address it correctly and politely, you can not only open their eyes to what's really going on if they have a misunderstanding, but it benefits the other members of your group or the people on your page when they see how you're responding positively and to turn it around.
Yes. A good example of that would be like Yelp reviews. So restaurants or hair salons or whatever get a lot of like hater comments on their Yelp reviews. And one of the best recommendations for those is to actually comment with the facts. So I don't believe you can hide Yelp reviews. And if you ignore them, then people will like believe an untruth. So if you know exactly, maybe there's a complaint on wait times, or somebody fabricates a story or something like that, you can actually go in and respond and say, like, these are all the reasons why we made these decisions, and actually gives people insight into your thought process and whatnot.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of these platforms like Yelp, I don't know if you know this, Mia, but the FTC was after them because they were fabricating reviews. And when people weren't advertising with them, that's when they bumped up all the bad reviews for if they didn't advertise with them, and they actually were sued for it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's also so in a similar fashion, like to your Facebook posts, like if somebody leaves a comment on the Facebook post, and it's like, we see this a lot when we're running free challenges or free video series where we have a tripwire on the back end of it. And we see it a lot where people are like, I thought this was free. You have to pay $19.99 for it, blah, blah, blah. So responding to those comments where you can say like, actually the video series is free, or the challenge is free, and there's this upgrade, like VIP upgrade, if you would like it, to pay $19.99. So when you respond to those kinds of comments, it actually shares the knowledge for everybody else who's like seeing your ad and like might have similar concerns or something like that. So you are like dispelling myths or giving more information or something like that.
An interesting thing happens too, just came to mind that I wanted to share. As you grow your tribe and it gets larger, and you will have your top commenters and engagers and the people who love you, and they, believe it or not, and we love you for it, all of you people who are in our groups, will actually come to your defense when somebody tries to attack you.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
How that happens. They circle the wagons. They're like, if somebody had a misunderstanding, they'll actually step in and help us by straightening things out and telling people if they don't misunderstood something. And they also would jump to your defense when somebody says something negative.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing that happens, and it's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. So those are external forces. When you start to show up into the online space and put yourself out there, there are people who have not done what you are trying to do yet that want to bring you down because of their own insecurities, or because they're jealous or whatever. They want what you have. Remember that there is always somebody who has achieved more than you, and there's a whole host of people who've achieved less than you. No matter where you are, you could be Oprah, you could be the Queen of England, you could be I Am Possible Marketing. It doesn't matter who you are or where you are in your entrepreneurial journey. There are people who are more successful than you, and there are a whole host of people who are less successful than you.
Right.
So what circles are you going to swim in, right? In my opinion, I always want to be like the least successful in the room, because I want, if we are the sum of the top 5 people that we surround ourselves with, I want the sum of my people to be like super up there, right? Super successful, very ambitious, because I don't want to surround myself with people who don't have the same ambitions or less than me. But there are people who have not achieved what you have want to achieve yet, and they have a tendency to want to bring you down. So just remember that, like, what comments and haters and emails and whatever that you get is a direct reflection of how that person feels about themselves or their own insecurities or where they are in their business, and maybe they are jealous of you or, you know, whatever. So those are external forces. You have to like forgive and let go and move on. If it becomes harassment, legal action may be necessary. Most people don't experience that, however. There's another kind of hater, and that is the internal, like within your own company. So as you grow and as you become more successful, in order to continue to scale, you need to hire people into your company, which means that you're giving them access to some personal information, access to your processes. When you bring somebody into your own company, you really are trusting that these are good people, that it will work, it will fit, you know, it'll be the right fit. Sometimes the relationships don't work out, and that's okay. However, there's a few things that you can do to protect yourself going into a relationship. So we never want to go into any kind of relationship, whether it's personal or professional, believing that the end is near, right? We don't typically enter into marriages thinking that they're going to end, or we don't enter into friendships thinking that you're not going to be friends with this person 2 years from now or whatever. We don't want to enter into business relationships assuming the worst. However, there are things that you can do to protect yourself. And the very first thing that you can do is provide them with an email address, like a Google G Suite email address, so that all interactions that they do within your company can be monitored or revoked at a click of a button. And I personally just hired on a new team member, and I wasn't going to do this right away. I wasn't going to give her an email address because I have to pay for it and all this stuff, because she was going to be working directly with me. However, I watched another person's video recently about setting yourself up for success when you hire on a team member. And that was one of the very first things that she said was, make sure you give them a company email address, because all activities then can happen through that company email address, right? So I have the ability to revoke access to the Google Drive, the email account, any passwords or anything that I've given her. And then I also can transfer all assets from that Google account into mine if needed. So say she makes a ton of spreadsheets or a ton of slides decks for me or whatever, all of that is not lost, provided that she makes it under, you know, the company. Right. And as long as you go into that with the expectation of, like, all things need to be made, you know, under this Google Drive or whatever, so that the company has access to it. And it's within your like contracts that all assets created under the company belong to the company, et cetera. Right. So that was tip number one. I thought that was brilliant. Tip number two is LastPass. So if you've not ever used LastPass, sharing access to passwords via LastPass is an excellent way to give access without actually giving them the password specifically. So if you have a company LastPass, say you're a done-for-you service provider and you have a company LastPass where people actually share their passwords with the company. So everybody logs into the company LastPass. So access, like passwords, can be changed immediately. Access can be revoked immediately. And Sally has a anecdotal story about the very reason why you do this. Do you want to share that, what happened this past weekend?
Oh boy. Okay, so in ActiveCampaign and in ClickFunnels, there are automations in ActiveCampaign, and then there are funnels in ClickFunnels. Well, we had a client that unfortunately let someone go, but he still had more work to do. So he still had access to those two platforms. And I don't know the ins and outs of everything that happened and why he did this. It was deliberate. He actually still had access. He should have been, that should have been revoked about a week and a half ago, and it wasn't. This business did not take him out of those platforms. And he deliberately went in Friday night, actually, and deleted two very important automations completely out of ActiveCampaign and all the pages in one funnel in ClickFunnels. And I spent the whole weekend recreating things for this client. And she should have gotten him out of there. He had his own login information. He wasn't using the general login for the company. He had his own. They could have removed him, and they never did. And you can imagine my shock and horror when I looked at these platforms Saturday morning and went, oh, where'd it go?
Yeah. That is a hard lesson to learn. And you would think and hope that people would have more, what's the word? Decency, I guess, to not directly sabotage somebody. However, sometimes relationships sour. If you can think about, any romantic relationships that maybe ended badly, how amazing and in love you were at the very beginning and how you could never dream of ever hurting this person. And then somehow along the way, minor infractions add up over time and it ended badly or sour or whatever. That can happen in business relationships too. So you go into it with the best of intentions and then maybe neither party really realized how things were actually going to work out, or maybe they didn't, the relationship wasn't what either party thought it was going to be, or the working environment wasn't what either party thought it was going to be. And so over time, one or more parties grow resentful. You would hope that we're adult enough that we would end a relationship before we grow resentful, but not all of us have healed our own inner child yet. So this, this happens in business relationships. And so the faster you can remove access when you let somebody go, the better. It is the same reason why we don't give 30-day notices. We give 2-week notices. Typically, that's standard because 30 days, a lot can happen in 30 days. And generally, you start to grow super resentful by like week 3 if you are the leaving party. So we just always recommend that you give access via LastPass and the company email address, and then revoke access immediately once the working relationship has ended.
I just want to mention one thing about LastPass because I've had this experience. You must be sure to save your master password somewhere where you know you can find it. If you don't, it's impossible to recover your account.
Yes, and I think you can set somebody else's LastPass up as a backup, like a failsafe. So there are ways to do that within LastPass. But yes, make sure that it's a password you remember and that you've written it down somewhere, or that you save it inside of a like Vault password app or something like that.
Save it in your notes on your phone if you have an iPhone.
There you go.
That's where I save them. That's where I save them. That's where I make my grocery list because I know I won't forget my phone.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. All right, so we're talking about haters today, and we're about to wrap up. We're going on 30 minutes. We try and keep these episodes at 30 minutes or less. We'd love to know in the comments if you guys have ever had a hater in your own experience, and also what your biggest fear is. So my personal biggest fear before going out on my own maybe about 1.5 years ago was showing up online and having somebody judge me. So I think our fear of judgment and our fear of this backlash is a very real thing. And that kind of stopped me from going online and going live. It also kind of tongue-tied me. Made me feel like I didn't know what I was talking about, or I didn't have something important to say. So the fear of judgment and backlash is very real and can stop us from our growth. Recognizing that and doing it anyway and pushing through that fear, it helps. Understanding that people will judge you regardless of what you do. What's that song? Like, let's give them something to talk about, right? Like,
yeah,
people are going to talk about you anyway, because their lives are not very interesting, and you are more interesting than their own lives. So there are some people out there that are going to judge you. There are some people out there that are going to talk about you regardless. So you might as well give them something to talk about, something interesting anyway.
Outside your comfort zone, by the way, guys. It happened outside the comfort zone.
Yeah.
Ginger has a question about Facebook ads access. If a third party set up ads, what happens later when they are done with the job?
That's a good question. So when you give somebody access inside of Business Manager, you can also revoke access. It's the reason why if anybody were to ever, like, say you hire a company and they want to do ads for you in their own ad account, run for the hills. Assets that are created for you, such as business, like Facebook ads or funnels or whatever, must be created in your own account so that you can walk away from the business relationship and still have the asset, because you hired them and paid them to build an asset for you. So if it's inside of their own account, that's a no-no. Walk away from that. Inside of your Business Manager, you either add a user to your account or you add a business partner. And both of those can be revoked. So for instance, I know you specifically, Ginger, we set up your ad account, or not your ad account, but we set up a ad campaign for you. You have the ability to remove access to remove our access to your account. So we no longer have access and we can't see it. So I hope that answers that question.
Susan has a nice quote here, a quote that recently caught my attention. You are the ocean and they prefer puddles. Don't take it personal.
Yes.
Like
yeah. People get very uncomfortable when you start to grow and expand, because they think that you are going to outgrow them. And, somebody is in your life for a reason or a season. And so that means that either you're in each other's lives to teach each other something or to help or whatever, and maybe you will always be in that person's life, or maybe you're just in their life for a season, and it's okay to outgrow somebody. I think that's probably the biggest fear too, is that we're going to outgrow somebody or somebody is going to outgrow us. If you understand that if you're not growing, you're shrinking. There is no other option.
Yes, Ginger, the data stays.
Oh, yes. Yeah, for sure. All the data stays because it's in your account, right? So just because somebody built a campaign for you does not mean that it all goes away once you revoke access. If it's in your account, the data is always there. Do not ever delete anything. Don't delete ad campaigns. Don't delete ad sets. Just turn stuff off that you're not using, but do not delete anything, because then you lose that data.
Yep.
Okay, I think that's all. I think we've chit-chatted enough. I don't know. Oh, okay. There we go. We just hit stop streaming. All right, friends. Join us next week for I Am Possible Radio. I have no idea what we're going to talk about, because we have no idea what we're talking about until that morning. But it's always bound to be good nuggets of information, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.